Hello there, YouTube. It is Saint Riot. Welcome back to YouTubeSaintRiot.com on the internet, doing Elden Ring invasions, PvP, player versus player. We're using Colossal swords. We're checking out what's going on with them since the patch 1.07. They got a buff, Colossal swords. They swing faster now. Also, the stamp Ashes of War, stamp sweep, and stamp uppercut. They're both faster. They're still not as fast as I think they should be, but they're faster than they were. And their hyper armor has been reworked. And I've been having a good time using stamp sweep. I made a video about it. You might have seen it. If you haven't, take this time to go find it. I'm sure there's probably a little pop-up that's like, hey, here's the video that you missed if you want to watch it. Anyway, the point is, stamp sweep gives you a ton of absorption. That's what we went over last time. When you stamp, when you press the button, it refills your poise health, meaning it's easier to make trades, and also it gives you a ton of absorption. So if somebody does hit you while you are stamping, it's going to take some of the damage off that hit. It's very nice. And the problem, well, two problems. One, I still don't think it's as fast as it should be, but that's okay. We can use it against other Ashes of War. There are a lot of Ashes of War that have a ton of recovery. So as long as I'm able to make a good read on my opponent, I can use stamp to mitigate some of the damage that I'm going to receive, and it allows me to get some damage out on my opponent instead. Now, the damage isn't great, so I was thinking about what can we do to try and get that damage up. And obviously, the quick answer is use the Shard of Alexander, but I don't have it on this character. I could go grab it, but I thought maybe there's something else we could do. Grabbing the Shard of Alexander means I'm going to have to go to Farum Azula, and that means my Erd Tree is going to be on fire, and I kind of like my Erd Tree not being on fire, so I just haven't grabbed it. However, I really should and will, because at level 90, one of the places you probably can get invasions is in Farum Azula, so it would make sense for me to go there. This invasion right here, I just turned on the game and I was like, what's going on today? What's activity like? This was the first invasion of the day, and I was like, okay. That didn't get a chance to do any stamp or anything like that. My opponent was using running pokey weapon, and running pokey weapons, way too little recovery to take advantage of stamp. However, here we go. Here we have some opponents we can take advantage of. The stamp, 410 damage on a single R1, and this is with 40 strength and a fire-infused Watchdog Greatsword. So we've got 40 strength, it's fire-infused, and we've got stamp. And we're going to be doing some testing today to see what we can do. My opponent right there actually hit me right in the sweet spot of in between the attack's hyper armor and the stamp's hyper armor. And it's kind of up to you, because your stamp hyper armor lasts forever until you press that button or until the stamp stops. So that was on me for pressing the button at the wrong time, and my opponent pressing his button at the right time. So that was just I don't think my opponent read me, but good job. He did a good job. 443 damage on the Phantom here. And what we're doing is we're taking a look at what regular R1s do, and then we're going to take a look at what stamp does. 547. So we went from like 440 to 420 something to 540. I did the math on this yesterday, and I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like 137% increase right there, which is fine and kind of in line with what you would expect. It's not much more damage, but it's some damage. And if we only hit once, we get 307. So the Ash of War Stamp Sweep hits twice, and if both hits manage to connect, that's 547 damage or whatever, versus 400 on just the regular R1. And I'm awful at math. I'm just so stupid. So these numbers are here for people who might, know more than me. And I'm sure somewhere this information is already documented, probably in Slug, the Slug bot, or, somewhere in the PvP community. But, yeah. This was just for my own personal, understanding. I want to see the numbers, and I want to see, how big is... Because obviously the Ash of War should do more damage because it costs FP. So if you're playing the game and you're not paying any attention to PvP or anything like that, if you're just playing the game, the only thing you know for sure is that it costs some of your blue bar to do a stamp sweep. So immediately there becomes an economy involved. Sorry. And if that's the case, that should be your special move. And it is. But you don't want your players to just spam it over and over and over again, but that's what they were doing. You do want it to feel strong though, right? Because they're not going to use it for everything, you would think. So here we have equipped the Rotted Sword insignia. This is what you get for defeating, or not defeating, well yeah, I guess you defeat Millicent's sisters. And if you help Millicent, she gives you the Rotted Sword insignia. There's an interesting property. You'll notice that it procced right away. There's an interesting property with R2s in, on this buff that I don't know why I'm an idiot and I pressed the wrong button. There's an interesting property on that, on those types of buffs. Either insignia. Actually, there's 3 insignias that do it. The flask you can drink, the physic to get that buff. There's a lot of weird interactions that go on there with heavy attacks, where they just instantly proc that buff. If you heavy attack, I say R2. Either way, and that's interesting. So I thought, yeah, well, the thing hits twice, and a lot of attacks proc it on a single, heavy attack. So we should definitely try it out. And sure enough, it works. So you could buff Stamp Sweep with that, and I haven't said anything about the damage that it did. So the first time we used it, it did 555 damage, and then the second time that we used it, it did 560 damage. So that is similar to the damage that we were doing earlier. But it's hard. You can't take one player's how much damage did you do to one player and how much damage did you do to the other. You can't do that because every character is different. They're different levels. They're wearing different armor. Their absorptions change. So you really have to only compare it with the players that you. Here, my physic has worn out. No more 10% fire damage, and we only do 467 damage. You can't be comparing, oh, well, on this one guy I did 300 damage, on this other guy I did 600 damage. You can't compare like that. You have to just compare with the same player, because, every character is going to be vastly different, and it will, that's the way you want to, understand, how much of a damage increase we're talking about. So, I never managed to hit that guy with just a regular R1 where he wasn't buffed. So I decided I'm going to do some testing on these little mozzarella marshmallow people, and then I ran into these shield guys. Hey, here's a PSA for everybody. Did you know that shields have been nerfed? See how, he's blocking that, and he's throwing out those counter hits, and then he's just swinging into me, and I did my Ash of War, and it did nothing. Thank you, Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler, for that special commentary. Ashes of War, unless specifically stated otherwise, they don't do extra damage against shields, but every other attack has been buffed to do more damage against shields. Alright, so we unfire infused, we heavy infused. And instead of fire damage up in our physic. We're going 10 strength. And looky there. That's more damage on the Marshmallow Man. Here we have 521 damage against our opponent with our Ash of War and the Sword Insignia. This is the good Sword Insignia, by the way. There's two different ones. This is the big one. You can't stack the big one and the small one, but you can stack the big one and Millicent's prosthesis. But you know, I'm not too worried about that. The next thing I'm going to test, I think, is Alexander's Shard. But this build really needs its talismans, so I can only have one. It's going to either be one or the other. And for right now, we're testing this one, and then next time we'll test the other thing. So there we go. There's some damage we can look at. But unfortunately, we're not going to hit that guy with any other attacks, which is a shame. We need to hit people at the same time, you know, not the same time, obviously, but we need to hit people with regular R1s and also Ashes of War. Regular R1, 474 damage. Alright, let's compare. So, the 474 damage on a regular R1, we have to consider is with 10 extra strength than what we hit them with the Ash of War, which was for 521. So we're still not getting like a, you know, super easy whatever comparison. Here I'm already buffed, and this is an interesting thing that exists in this game. 419 damage, and I bring this up because I already know what's going to happen. I'm going to hit this guy again, but I'm not going to lock on when I hit him. And in that last instance, when I hit him, I locked onto him at the last second, and for some reason, this game and Souls always makes you do one less damage if you lock onto someone right as you hit them. I don't know why. It's always one less damage, and this is like a documented thing. I'm not making it up, which is even weirder. It sounds like I'm making it up. So that time I don't lock onto him, and 420 damage instead of 419. I don't know. So 420, legalize it. With the buff active. So now all we need to do is hit this guy with Stamp Sweep, and then we will have like a full-blown comparison of, you know, how much extra damage are we getting out of it. Oh, I don't think I hit him with everything. I got 432 on a single attack there. This is harder than it looks. Math. It's hard. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, I'm sorry. I don't think I ended up managing to hit this guy with Stamp Sweep. You've watched this video for nothing. Although I guess it is at least interesting that, you know, you can proc it in a single hit. That's interesting. Do you want to know what's more interesting than that even? Charged R2s. Charged R2s. They're insane. 700 damage. Look at the hyper armor. Follow up charged heavy attack. Another 700 damage. That is like 200 damage better than anything we've done. And you don't have to, there's no Ash of War involved. And the amount of hyper armor you get on a charged R2, especially a follow-up charged R2, the amount of hyper armor that you get is just absolutely insane. Yeah, I'll keep playing around with this or whatever, but mostly just an excuse to have some fun, you know. Maybe I'll get an invasion where, you know, I can actually take a look and compare numbers buffed or unbuffed together. Until then, later, y'all.